Well, welcome to class 11. We're going to be talking about the brain and the nervous system. So, yeah, who doesn't want to have like clearer thinking, more energy, being able to remember things, all that type of stuff can be involved in the brain and the nervous system getting clogged up. And so, yeah, I'm going to talk about brain and nervous system. It's an exciting thing, and it's so complex that we still don't even know fully how it all works, but we know the basics of things that make it function better and things that clog it up and can bog us down. But yeah, can't everybody relate to, oh, I can't remember that one thing, and short-term or long-term memory loss, and right? Or just being sharp on our minds, you know, always being able to be clear about. I got a little explosion over here.
Sorry.
Always got to make it interesting. But
Okay, cool.
You all right over there?
Yeah, all right. Go ahead.
But yeah, I think we can all relate to wanting to have a sharper mind, and obviously the brain controls the whole body, so it starts to show up as issues with the short-term memory, not thinking as clear, not being able to remember where did I put my keys. But it develops into way serious more things with the Alzheimer's and the senile dementia. And, you know, if your brain's not functioning and synapses aren't firing properly, that affects everything, your coordination, your, you know, your whole body. The brain's ability to communicate with the body, aka the nervous system, telling the glands how to function, how much hormones to secrete. So the brain is the computer of everything, and the nervous system is the communication highway to send those messages. Can you imagine, you guys ever been in a bad like car jam on the highway where traffic's just backed up? I used to drive here in Kansas City about 30 minutes to work and back, and oh my gosh, it wasn't even that far, but it was in rush hour on the way there and back, and you'd just be sitting, stop and go, and stop and go. Well, that's what's going on in our brain sometimes, in our body, is we're so messed up with congesting foods, bad oils, all sorts of stuff, that stuff's getting backed up and not communicating properly. And actually sometimes the brain is dying. Cells in the brain are dying because they're not getting oxygen, they're not getting nutrients, they're clogged up that highway, and it causes issues. So we all want to be able to think better, to be able to function better, and to be more, you know, guys and athletes. We want to be more athletic and more coordinated and stronger. And so sometimes, you know, in lifting weights, I knew that there was a lot of connection in the mind to being able to even contract all the muscles. You could do a bench press, and you're not even engaging all the muscle fibers in the bench. So you work on the mind and different things to be able to control that. So it applies to like everything. Of course, being an athlete, I always thought about it from that perspective and wanting to be more athletic and balance, coordination, being able to have those quick reflexes. I love that in track and football. And, you know, when I was a track athlete, I prided myself on the very beginning of the race, having the quickest reaction, quickest explosion. And so a lot of this has to do with, our brain and those synapses, and you can actually build up neural pathways too to different things you think about. So I'm not here to talk as much about like the mental, as far as like building those synapses, but there's a lot to do with like our mental emotions and words, and we can build mental thought patterns in good ways and stop old ones, building good habits. So whole another topic, but I'm obviously here to talk about herbs that are good for that, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the basics of the brain and the nervous system, good herbs that are good for that, and diet related, because it's just so huge in today's world. I think probably 95+% of people aren't thinking clear, short-term memory loss, all the little things that eventually lead into that Alzheimer's, dementia. I mean, it was really sad with, you know, when you see older people that they forget everything. They don't know what's going on. That happened to my grandma, actually. And she'd been married to my grandpa for, I don't know, 60-some years. And it was a sad day in the hospital when she looked at him and said, "Who are you?" And I just saw his heart break. And, you know, we hate to see stuff like that happen. But when the brain gets clogged up, it gets messed up, I mean, you lose who you are, you know. And so we need to take care of our body so it functions, our brain and nervous system, at the highest levels, and not put only put the foods that God designed in our bodies and only put foods in our bodies. I know that sounds crazy, but people are putting all sorts of drugs and alcohol and all that just messes up and makes things go crazy in our body. So, and then you have the serious cases of people with real bad neurological disorders, and I'll talk a little bit about that too, and or even spinal cord injuries and some very serious neurological stuff that can be reversed and can be made better, even though the medical community doesn't like to address that. They just want to find a way to make money off of you and medicate you. But we've seen it time and time, God healing supernaturally, but also God healing through His foods and partnering with Him in our health. So the central nervous system consists of the brain and the spinal cord. And so these tissues have what they call like gray and white matter. And this stuff helps transmit impulses throughout the body, the whole central nervous system. The brain is made up of nerve tissue. And I don't know that I'm going to go through all this because there's some pretty technical stuff. But so obviously the brain and the spinal cord are the centers of communication, regulatory system, sensory evaluation, sending those signals throughout the whole body. And they know in like chiropractic too that you have your spinal cord, obviously, and if you get even messed up in your spine, it can put pressure on that nerve and therefore cause impairment in the corresponding organs. If your lower back, it's related to kidneys, and that middle back could be liver and gallbladder, and a little bit higher up involved in the heart, and they see that. So anytime you impair, you're going to damage those corresponding organs. You're going to cut off communication, and but we can keep that healthy with nutrition and stuff too. And chiropractic is maybe needed at times too. When you're out of balance and you've been in an accident or something's out of whack, you need to get that right. So the medulla is the main part of the brain, and it lies at the base of the skull. I want to talk a little bit about that because it has a ton of functions that are really important, including blood pressure, heart rate, metabolic rate, the rate of glandular secretions, so obviously that's really important, mineral utilization, pH factors in the body, controls oxygen supply and water retention, also equilibrium. So it's a major part of the brain. I mean, every part's a major part, but this one especially, as I've learned, is greatly affected by congestion from dairy products, refined sugars. Those are some of the worst offenders is the processed dairies, very mucus forming, very congesting forming in our lymph, in our body, in the brain. Same with refined sugars, even processed grains. And then bad fats would be another really bad one. If you see any label that says, everybody knows trans fats, but hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated, that's really bad because they've heated it and altered it in such a way where it's completely foreign, the body can't use it, and it just becomes an offender in the body and clogs stuff. So we need good healthy fats. The brain is a lot based on cholesterol. There's a lot of fear about cholesterol, but we need good healthy fats. And for our body to produce cholesterol for the brain to be healthy, but you don't need a ton of fat. And I'll get into diet here a little bit later, but yeah, when you eat these congesting foods, not only does it congest your whole body, but it congests the brain. I mean, go eat a bunch of meat and cooked dairy and tell me how good your thinking is the next couple hours. Yeah, not very good. Or go eat a whole bowl of grapes and then tell me. Tell me which one is better for your thought process. But of course, those are very bad for the lymphatic system. We've talked about how bad the lymphatic system. By the time your lymphatic system gets clogged up in the brain, which there's actually two lymphatic systems in the brain that I learned about. The main one that goes through the whole body, but your brain has another separate lymphatic system. Of course, it would be God's wisdom to have more than one lymphatic system in the most important area. But by the time that gets clogged up, everything below is backed up. So the brain is usually the last thing because stuff drains down. And if stuff down here is backed up, God built it that way because the brain is the most important part. But by the time the brain is affected, everything else below it is backed up. So you really got to attack the whole body, not just the brain, but there are some awesome things to improve specifically the brain and improve blood flow. But you have to dress holistically always, like we talk about, the whole body as a whole, moving that lymphatic system, moving that cardiovascular system, eating good. The autonomic nervous system, this is like the self-controlling, somewhat automatic, part of your involuntary. It controls the heartbeat, it controls, your reflexes, that type of stuff. So that's a really important part. Sympathetic is more of the fight or flight response and all the stuff that goes into that. And then you have your parasympathetic. This is more of your, just your general, in a normal condition stuff. So you can read a little bit more on that. Like I said, I'm not going to read everything on this. Give you guys extra notes, which I'm not normally a super detailed person, but I felt like I just keep feeling the Lord's telling me to write these more specific notes for whoever that will help and whoever is a detailed person. I like knowing about it, but I'm more of like the big picture, bring it to simplicity. So, okay, paragraph I. If the body can miraculously heal itself, like broken bones, cuts, regrowth of glands, tissues, everybody knows that. You cut yourself, you don't even think about it. You just have faith. Oh, that's going to heal. You break a bone, you know it's going to heal. God designed our bodies to heal. We know that. So why is it that people say it can't repair nerves? I don't know, because it can. And we've seen it time and time again. And, especially one of the guys I study through, Dr. Morse, he's like hundreds and thousands of people that have regrown nerves, regrown pathways. I think the medical community is establishing it a little bit more now. They know like if you cut your hand and you lose tingling in a finger, it can eventually grow back, but it might take some time. But then they don't want to address it on the bigger type of stuff like spinal cord injuries, that type of stuff. And Dr. Morse has seen spinal cord injuries, people being paralyzed for decades, get communication back, get movement back. It's fascinating. But to do that kind of, you got to think nerves are probably some of the slowest to repair. They really are. They take time. A muscle heals pretty quickly. There's a large blood supply, lot of nutrients, oxygen. You start talking about tendons, ligaments. It's a lower blood supply. And the nerves are they're even slower. But if you give them the right energetic foods, the right things, and the right herbs and stuff, they can regenerate quickly in comparison, but it still takes time. And any cells in the body can regenerate themselves. And that's been proven. So, yeah, the nerves can repair themselves, but like Dr. Morse says, not on cooked dead foods and foods that make the body's pH acidic. When you're acidic, it's like taking away oxygenation. The more higher pH you are, the more oxygenated you are, the more regenerative you are, the more acidic you are, less oxygenated, more congesting, less rebuilding. So naturally, we're supposed to be in a slightly higher pH, so that we're staying healthy, we're staying cleansed, we're all that type of stuff. So the body does require, an alkaline environment to regenerate. They require the highest energy stuff, especially the brain and the nerve. They need very high energy. The neurons, the nerves, we're electrical. You can measure it. And the stuff that's the most electrical in the body is the brain and the nervous system. It's sending communication. And naturally, the foods that are the highest electrical are fruits. So, I talk about in here, fructose is a very high energy. It's a simple sugar. It doesn't need insulin to even be shuttled into the cells. God designed it so simple that it takes minimal digestion, high nutrient content, high energy. I gave some of you a handout, but this is out of one of my textbooks, talking about the energetics of foods, and they rated in angstroms with it, which is an energy. Some of you that didn't get it, if you want it, I can print out some more of it too. But they're measuring the energetics of foods. So berries, fruits, melons, rated around 12,000 angstroms. They're very high energy. Once you get down to even raw vegetables, it drops down to 8,000 or 9,000 angstroms. Humans say we run around 6,000 or 7,000. We need at least that to function at a high level. Humans with cancer, this is interesting, of course they're going to be lower energetics, rate around 4,800 or less. Cooked vegetables, only 1,000 to 3,000 angstroms. Dairy 1,800, grains 1,500, animal protein basically 0. So you're not going to regenerate nerves while eating animal protein, grains, dairy, cooked vegetables. And Dr. Morse has done this for decades, and he's a big fan of, greens and even, just the vegetables are great for us. But he's hit walls in detoxing people, and because they're on vegetables, and he's had to switch to all fruits to break through and go deeper and have higher regeneration. So the people that he was regenerating nervous systems and spinal cord injuries and stuff, it was all fruits, and then the addition of herbal stuff. So phenomenal stuff. And if you heard me talk several times, I believe that fruit is the main thing that our body was designed for anyway. Yeah, but the greens are very important, and same with nuts and fats and stuff, but it's all in the right balance and in the closest way that God created it too. You start getting into, all these cooked fats. If you could save questions to the end, that'd be great. Just write it down. At the end, I'll do question and answer. But, yeah, we definitely need fats. We definitely, vegetables are very good for us. But for somebody who is very sick, the fruits are going to be the highest, best cleansers, best astringents, best energy. For somebody that's healthy, incorporate more vegetables, more green juices, more greens, more salads, They're just a little harder to digest. They're not as high as energetics. They're not as high as cleansing. And another thing that needs to be addressed too is the adrenal glands. If you were here for my adrenal class, and I've talked about it several times, the adrenal glands are like one of the most vital things for so many things, but very important for neurological stuff. They produce neurotransmitters. And so if your adrenal glands, it works in partnership with the brain and the nervous system. If it's not producing adequate neurotransmitters, that stuff accelerates. Also, the adrenal glands, very important for producing corticosteroids, buffering acids in the body, that type of stuff, among a million other things. But yeah, so for regenerating nervous system, it's important to be 100% raw food diet. Our bodies become very acidic when we eat foods that most people promote today. The dairies, the grains, all this processed stuff, and can't believe people are still going to McDonald's. And to think about those days, and I've mentioned it a couple times in my classes, where I used to drive a lot, especially late at night. And one of my go-to things that makes me sick to think about, I would pull into McDonald's really quick, and I would get 3 double cheeseburgers. 2 or 3. Normally it was 3. And I would eat all of them. And then I would wonder why I'm tired driving down the road later. It was late at night too, but just crazy, But I didn't know. I just thought, oh, it's food. It's not even food. I wouldn't consider it food. It's not food anymore. Your body goes, what the heck is that? And it just damages you. So, yeah, dead animal flesh, cooked mucus-forming dairy grains, dairy food, acidic-forming grains, processed sugars. These destroy our body and congest us. So, I put be alive again. Regenerate yourself. Let the miracles begin with eating these foods and eating the way that God created us to. It's fascinating when I hear the stories about Dr. Morse and their clinic, over his 42 or 43 years of practice, and the people that he's helped in these stories. And I've seen some videos and interviews with people and pictures, and just wow, and he's not the only person doing this stuff. He's just somebody I've known a lot about, and I've studied through and gotten certified in how they approach it. And he definitely knows his stuff. But just fascinating stories that, and it's hard to get those out because the FDA and everybody's cracking down. They don't want you to know that stuff. They don't make money. It's not a money. How much money do you make off of somebody eating good food? You don't. But if I give you a pill that costs $1,000 a month, that's never gonna cure you, because you're gonna have to take that pill for the rest of your life. That's good business. And they train doctors sometimes to tell you, if you get a such and such patient, that means X dollars to you for the rest of their life. It's sad. So, but I'm not here to bash doctors. I'm just here to talk about how we can partner with God, and there are good doctors out there, and we need them for several things too. But they're not very good at regenerating the body. So let's talk about herbs. God's awesome herbs that He created. I got a good amount of them in here, and I kind of broke it up a couple different subjects related to. There's a lot of things with brain and nervous system stuff. I mean, you get people that are, shaky, foggy thinking, to, like I said, the more extremes. So I got it kind of covered in different areas, but some of the main ones for brain and nervous system are here. Some of these first ones. So ginkgo biloba. A lot of people have heard about ginkgo biloba. It's one of the best for the brain and the nervous system. It's used throughout the world for like memory loss. I mean, this goes back thousands of years that they've just known that, and it's a leaf of a tree, but the nutrients in it and everything are very energizing to the brain, the nervous system, improve blood flow in the brain especially, but it does dilate blood vessels in the whole body, which improves blood flow everywhere. It does strengthen the heart and the vascular system. So, of course, the stronger the vascular system is that goes to the brain and the heart, the more oxygen, the more nutrients are up in the brain. So, obviously, I put a couple of things that it could be good for: fibromyalgia, hemorrhoids, spider veins. I mean, but anything neurological, brain-related, ginkgo biloba is going to be a power herb for that. Go-to cola. Another just great one. It's considered one of the finest herbs for brain and nerve regeneration. It's considered a nervine, recommended for all nervous disorders, epilepsy, senility, premature aging. Yeah, it's considered a brain tonic too, so just a nourishing, said to aid intelligence, memory. At the end, I'll talk about a couple products that I really like that have a lot of these herbs in them, because I like formulas like we talk about. You could take one of these or two of these, and that's great, but the formulas where they work together synergistically is the most powerful in my opinion. And Go-To Cola also helps in strengthen the adrenal glands, which, like I said, is very important. It's considered a cellular proliferator, increases oxygen to the cells, promotes blood flow, strengthens the vascular wall. So just a tremendous herb that's good for so many things. But that's like a must for brain and nerve stuff. Same with skullcap, the next one. Great for brain, nerve, spine, nervous system, strengthening everything. It's also a sedative and an antispasmodic. So people with, I didn't even mention that, but seizures and epilepsy and all this type of stuff. I mean, a lot of these are great because there's stuff that's out of whack a little bit. And sometimes the nervines, the antispasmodics, they can calm down, and then you get blood flow going, you get certain pathways cleared out, and you get nutrients up in there. And you see that stuff go away. So there's always hope for those situations. Just continue to press on. And like I said, sometimes that takes a little bit of time, but do the right things and do them consistently, and good things happen. So yeah, of course, it's great for multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, palsy, spinal cord injuries, all that type of stuff. Strengthens the medulla, which I talked about specifically. So that helps with dizziness and cramping, all that type of stuff. Can also help with insomnia, and with drug and alcohol withdrawal symptoms. It's an interesting one, but we do have people that struggle with that stuff, and that can help because some of that's controlled in the brain where it's saying you need this, and it's helping calm that down while you can break yourself of those addictions. Which can be sugar too. You can be addicted to sugar, and your brain's saying, I need sugar. So it's not always drugs like people think about too. So rhodiola, talked about rhodiola a ton of times because it's an amazing herb for a lot of things. Very good for the anti-anxiety because its effect on the adrenal glands. But yeah, it's got a history going way back to, I like to look at this stuff, and it was mainly known way back by the Vikings. And if you've ever heard and read stories about the Vikings, they were known as these fierce warriors, and usually talked about as very big and powerful and muscular, and they would conquer people. They were known as very fierce. So they talk a lot about rhodiola. They call it the golden herb, and good for their strength and endurance and stamina. And certain emperors would ask people to go and find it and bring it back to them because they knew how powerful it was. So all these herbs usually have pretty cool stories, but some of them I know more specifically about. But it does strengthen the nervous system. It fights depression, enhances memory, energy levels, all that type of stuff. So yeah, a very good one for anxiety. It does work with the body by decreasing the brain's level of serotonin, norepinephrine, dopamine. Most of the times I just know stuff works. I don't always know how, but the Chinese and people have used stuff for thousands of years, and they've recorded what does what and what has what effects, and then today's scientific evidence proves why it's having that effect. Deer antler. This would be a definite must for like rebuilding nerve pathways for sure, because it's all the growth factors. I've talked about that several times too, and some people are like, deer antler, what? Well, these deers are growing these antlers every year and at a really quick rate too. Sometimes up to 2 centimeters a day. It's like us growing a leg bone of like at 2 centimeters a day. Can you imagine? When I was a kid, I would be so impressed when I gained like 2 inches in a year, and 2 centimeters a day. Sometimes they're growing these, so they have these powerful growth factors, and the Chinese have used it for thousands of years. But again, now we study it and show, oh my gosh, it's got all these insulin growth factors and blah 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 stuff that's more scientific than I know how to understand. All I know is it's got tons of awesome stuff in it, and we put that stuff in our body, and it helps regrow and regenerate things at a super high, crazy rate. So people take it and, you read a book on what deer antler is good for, and it's like everything, because it affects the whole body. Makes the skin look better. It can improve eyesight. It can make you athletic, your performance go up, give you more energy. It can produce more testosterone. But especially when you're talking about the nervous system and you need to increase that regeneration and that regrowth. Deer antler is one thing that Dr. Morse has used a lot. Once he's got somebody really cleansed and detoxed, he starts hitting them with a lot of deer antler because of the regeneration, the regrowth, and that's been some key things that he's used to reconnect people nervous system wise. And so deer antler is very powerful. So I got some things on here, but of course the increasing nerve activity and regenerating damaged nerve cells is some of the most important things that we're talking about, but it could be pretty much likened to anything making you healthier. Glandular, it's very powerful for the adrenal glands, for the gland system. So a great one, and we have, you can find pure deer antler sprays or formulas that have it in it, so I'll talk about that at the end. Schizandra berry. Schizandra berries are interesting little berries. I don't know if you guys have ever tried Schizandra berry by itself, but I think they call it like the 5 or 6 flavor berry because it's sweet and it's tart and it's sour and it's really interesting as a berry. But they found all these awesome benefits to it, and when you're talking about brain and nervous system stuff, some of the best just foods in general, berries and melons, especially the berries, because they're so potent in nutrients and in flavonoids and all these things that I don't even fully know. I just know it's packed full of stuff. They talk about all these super fruits that are berries all over the world, acai berry and goji berry, and Schizandra berry is one of them. They consider it an adaptogenic herb that really helps your body adapt to stress, physical, emotional, mental stress. So it's good for athletes, good for people with anxiety, but it supports the endocrine gland system. It does have a positive effect, a very powerful effect on the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. So they've studied that and proven it now. Helps fight fatigue, stress, reducing levels of stress hormones. So Schizandra berry is a great herb for the nervous system as well. But bringing harmony to the whole body. The Chinese are big on herbs because they've studied them for thousands of years and passed on. But some of the biggest things is they take like some of the basic herbs, and it's like, don't use this for 1 week for an issue. It's like, take it every day for the rest of your life. And if you heard me talk about, there's this Chinese guy, I'll mention it again because when I heard this, it was so crazy, and you can look up information on it. This Chinese guy that supposedly lived to be like 256 years old that died in the early 1900s. Some people say, oh, that's not true, that's not this. And so you can go back, and the Chinese actually pulled records and showed stuff. So the Chinese show that he was born in a certain year that said he was 256 years old when he died. The man claimed to be born a little bit later, so he would have said he died being 196 years old. So either way you cut it, he lived a really long time. And some of the main things he said is, I drank ginseng tea every day, several times a day usually, and he said he primarily ate all foods that grew above the ground, and the higher up away from the ground, the better, which is mainly fruits. You get into the ground, there's more starchy stuff. And I'm not saying that it's bad to eat stuff out of the ground. I'm just telling you what he said. So he obviously had some wisdom. But yeah, these herbs that they use consistently to help strengthen the body, strengthen the glands, the brain, the nervous system, they're big on taking those consistently. So I just throw that out there. So getting into some circulation boosting herbs, because of course that's going to be good for the brain. You get more blood flow up in the brain. It's going to help blood flow, oxygen, nutrients. It's really important. So bilberry, a tremendous strengthener of the vascular system. Great for varicose veins. I talked about in our heart and circulation class or circulatory system class how small these capillaries are sometimes. You think about a vein, and I can flex my arm and see these big veins, but you're talking about the capillaries are the smallest ones, and those, you had the veins that deliver they're like the main source, like if you think of a big river, but then you have little offshoots that feed the actual cells. And if those capillaries get blocked, you lose stuff to the cell. And those capillaries sometimes are so small that the red blood cells have to go single file down there. So you can imagine how easy it is to clog that when you're eating dairies and cooked grains and fats especially. Get clogged and no more nutrients to that cell, no more oxygen to that cell. A lot of people, you can notice when they're starting to get clogged up, they're losing hair, people have been, people starting to get cleansed out and stuff, regrow their hair back. And they grow it back in their original color too. It's crazy. But that's sometimes a sign of, you're starting to get clogged up a little bit, and sometimes the graying of the hair too. And there's an herb, Hisho Wu, that a guy, supposedly he was in a jail cell and this herb grew into it. And so he would eat it every day, and no matter how old he got, his hair never grayed and it always stayed thick, full of color. And he attributed that. But so good cardiovascular system, not eating bad foods, getting the lymph cleared out of the whole body, but especially the head, getting everything filtering, super important. Bilberry is a very powerful one for strengthening the arteries, capillaries, veins, inhibiting the coagulation of platelets. The more acidic you are too, the more things coagulate. They get thick. So that can affect circulation. The more alkaline you are, the more things are free flowing. It's the way we want to be. And the more hydrated you are too. The more acidic you are, usually the more dehydrated the cells are. Butcher's broom. This is a great circulatory herb, very powerful anti-inflammatory. It helps remove plaque from the circulatory system, which of course increases circulation. Tone strengthens the vascular walls. So another great herb for improving circulation and helping clear things out. Cayenne pepper. This has been valued around the world for so many things, and I've told some cool stories about cayenne, but yeah, it's very powerful for circulation, boosting circulation in the whole body. You can put, we're getting into the cold season, and I've heard people putting cayenne pepper like in their sock and going outside because it'll boost circulation to their feet, and their feet won't get cold. Yeah, cayenne pepper is pretty powerful, so you got to know what you're doing with it, because when it gets wet, it can start to burn a lot more, and so you sweat a lot and it could burn. But yeah, some people even massage it into their head to produce, bring blood flow to the hair more in the head. And but yeah, you got to caution that. I've done it before with apple cider vinegar and cayenne, and yeah, it can drip down and get in the eyes. And But you can take it internally and it'll boost circulation, but it can be externally too. It also stops blood loss too. Like if you have internal bleeding, take cayenne, it will stop blood flow. So it's crazy. It kind of sounds opposite. It increases blood flow, but it will stop blood flow. And there's a cool story I'll tell, or I told, but I'll tell it again about, they've known for a long time that it will stop blood flow. And if you cut yourself, you could put cayenne, it'll stop the bleeding. Well, there was this story about, I think it was out in Oregon. This guy was with his friend and had some kind of accident where he cut part of his arm off or a part of his limb. And so they called for the ambulance, but the guy's like bleeding profusely. And it's like, he's not going to make it. So he just ran in the house, got a bottle of cayenne and poured it all over his friend's arm. And the paramedics show up and was like, what were you doing? You idiot, why would you do something like that? Well, they came back to him later and said, hey, you saved your friend's life, like to stop the bleeding. And those paramedics started carrying cayenne pepper in their ambulance everywhere they went because they knew how powerful it was. They saw it firsthand. Like there's nothing we could have done to stop the bleeding that quickly. Powerful stuff. But yeah, when you take it internally, it moves. It's circulation. It is stimulating, so I don't necessarily recommend it for long-term use consistently, but it can be powerful to boost circulation. Hawthorn berry is known as the great heart herb. Another berry, go figure. So it's loaded with flavonoids and things specific for the heart and the vascular system. So they've shown over and over that it's good for strengthening the heart, rebuilding the vascular system, cleansing it out. It's vasodilating, which means it's opening up the veins so that takes pressure off of the heart, increases circulation. Helps remove, it's high in antioxidants, removes acids, inflammation in the body, all that type of stuff. So a great one for circulation, the cardiovascular system. Again, which is important because that goes up into the brain. You start lacking that, it affects flow to the brain. And then I have a section here on adrenal and endocrine boosting herbs, although some of the herbs I already talked about are good for the adrenals and the endocrine system, but here's a couple more specific, like licorice root, probably one of the best herbs for the adrenal glands and the whole endocrine gland system. Again, the adrenal glands have to be able to produce those neurotransmitters that help brain function and nervous system function. You want your adrenal glands producing good for so many reasons. And eating good food and nourishing them with herbs definitely helps. It helps balance cortisol levels by preventing the breakdown of adrenal hormones. It increases neurotransmitters, steroid production. Very powerful one for the adrenal glands. Same with astragalus, the next one. But astragalus works just a little bit differently. All these work a little bit differently, and that's why I like to use them in conjunction with each other. Because astragalus is known as a cellular proliferator, as some of these are, but strengthening all cells of the body, but very powerful for the adrenal glands, the nervous system, the whole endocrine gland system, but very good for the immune system. I made an immune boost tea here, and I put astragalus in it because it's really known for increasing white blood cell count and all sorts of things. Astragalus is very safe to be taken even in higher doses for long periods of time. Increases the cardiac output and strengthens the cardiovascular system. Just a great herb that is very affordable and tastes good. I'll sometimes just spoon it and throw a spoonful of it in my mouth, the powder, and I actually like the way it tastes, and it's good for so many things. Siberian ginseng, known as eleuthero. Another one that's great for the endocrine gland system, another adaptogenic herb, so good for all that type of stuff, increasing circulation, reducing cholesterol. The Russians kind of came across it. It's not a true ginseng, but they call it Siberian ginseng because they found it in Russia and found a lot of similar benefits to ginseng. I could have put ginseng in here too, but any of the ginsengs are going to have similar properties, strengthening the body, strengthening the adrenal glands, strengthening the endocrine gland system. And then I've got some nervine, calming herbs for the nervous system, some antispasmodic type of stuff, more of those relaxing, calming ones. St. John's wort, mainly known for like depression, increasing the mood, I always wondered, it had a weird name to me, but it has the history of blooming right about on St. John's Day, so they called it St. John's wort. But great for the nervous system, anxiety, irritability, antidepressant. They say it's even more effective than Prozac, a pharmaceutical. Sedative, pain reducing, so a great one for somebody that struggles with that type of stuff. Valerian root, very calming to the nervous system. So somebody that is always in that like anxiety, that fight or flight mode, this can be really powerful to calm them down, bring them down. It's non-addicting. It's very safe. It does support the adrenal glands also. Helps with the nervous tension, muscle spasm, epileptic seizures and depression. So all that stuff would be very good to use valerian with. Just helps strengthen brain and nerve tissue in general. It's like brain and nerve food. Kava root, very similar to valerian also, but a little bit more known for the antispasmodic and being a real powerful muscle relaxer. So kava and valerian are both in a lot of sleep formulas because how much they can relax you, calm you, bring you into a state where it's easier to go to sleep and stay asleep longer. But very good for, anxiety, any apprehensions, a hectic lifestyle. It also happens to be good for arthritis and those type of things. And then passion flower. Has anybody ever seen a picture or seen a passion flower? Yeah? Looks pretty cool, doesn't it?
They're big, right?
I don't know how big they are. I've only seen pictures.
You had it in our backyard.
You had them in your backyard.
Sri
Wow.
Lanka.
In Sri Lanka. Okay.
It's a vine. It's a vine full of flowers and fruits. So.
Wow, that's cool. I've never seen them in person that I know of, but you look at pictures, and I encourage you, and it looks amazing. Really awesome. So and they're known for how unique and cool they look, but they're very fragrant too. They smell really good, right?
Yeah. Very gentle smell. It's like
Yeah. Is the passion flower where the passion fruit grows too?
passion fruit.
Passion fruit
Passion
grows?
flower and the passion fruit is the same thing.
Yeah. Cool. I love passion fruit. I had it for the first time in Mexico when I spent 6 months down there, and amazing.
Sometimes we have it in the sprouts in the whole food.
Okay.
Sometimes it's not. It's too ripe.
Yeah, it's hard to get a good one up here, but man, I just spent some time in Florida a couple weeks ago, and we had some passion fruit there, and nothing like those fresh, exotic fruits, and amazing. But yeah, it's like a little pod, and you open it up, and the seeds, and it's just, it's so good.
Same plant?
Same plant, yeah.
You can squeeze it up and put a straw in it and just squeeze the juice and just
Just put a straw in it. Nice. Yeah. Sweet. Yeah, so good. But passion flower, they use as a natural sedative and non-drowsy, but it will, another relaxer in a lot of sleep formulas. Help with the nervousness, the anxiety, panic attacks. They have shown scientifically that it increases levels of GABA, which that's something that your brain produces that helps bring a state of relaxation. And so for those with like bipolar disorders, anything that related, this is going to be really powerful to help with that. So yeah, and again, I could have put a lot more herbs in here, but I don't like to overwhelm you with like 1,000 herbs. Just try to hit the main ones in each one. Every continent has kind of like its main ones that are good, and so this is a lot that can be, are from the United States, some that are from, the best ones from other countries, but that we get fairly regularly now in the U.S. And then I've got some, I started doing this last class, recommending some products, and initially when I did my classes, I didn't want to recommend products because I'm not here to sell products. It's not my purpose. I'm here to educate people. But we've got such cool products that I want to mention them because it brings together all these, and so I like to have you guys have an idea of formulas I like and why formulas are good because they incorporate several of them that work together synergistically. So I put some in here that are the best for brain and nerve, regeneration, function, and then I did another section on like adrenals, endocrine glands. But and we've brought in some new ones and some stuff from Dr. Morse because he has the most powerful, best formulas on the market. He goes the extra mile in making sure they're strong because he treats the worst of the worst people, and he has to have stuff that works. And we've started taking some of his stuff and just like, oh my gosh, it's powerful, it's potent. You can taste the herbs, and it shows that he really does have the strongest stuff on the market. So for brain and nerve function and regeneration, I like his formula. It's called Brain and Nerve Formula, and he does have a number 1 and a number 2 that are both similar, slightly different. But so this is like what's in the number 2. I just happen to know that because I bought it. It's got Godu Kola, Skullcap, Ginkgo, Eleuthero, Astragalus, Butcher's Broom, Shizandra, Hisho Wu, Cayenne. So all those major ones I talked about. So he's got stuff for specifically for brain and nerve regeneration. He's got some stuff in there for the circulation. A great formula. I love the ones that are in that. We do sell a lot of the one called Think too, and we get a lot of people that have that. It helps you think better. It's got the ginkgo, the godu kola, hisho wu, eleuthero, and then it has mung bean and rosemary. Rosemary can help circulation as well. So a good formula. It's not quite as extensive as the Dr. Morse one, but a great one for improving brain function. And we have a different brand. Cedar Bear, it's called Brain Booster. Again, same idea, just their take on it. Godu Kola, Ginkgo, Hawthorn, Feverfew, Ginger, Alfalfa, Horsetail, Capsicum. So a good formula for brain boosting. And then I throw Dr. Morse's upper circulation in there. He formulated it specifically to improve blood flow from the neck up, from the head. So a lot of times he'll use, like for brain and nerve stuff, he'll use the upper circulation along with the brain and nerve while he's cleansing somebody also. So that's got stuff for the brain and nerve, but it's got some extra things for the circulation to boost it. So ginkgo, of course, for brain and nerve, and godu kola, but it's got the butcher's broom, rosemary, white oak, bayberry, very good for circulation. The hawthorn, bilberry, schizandra berry, prickly ash. So a good formula for boosting circulation up in the head. And then for adrenals and endocrine, Dr. Morse's Endocrine Balance is a good one. So a lot of the herbs I talked about, and when I actually did my adrenal gland, endocrine gland class, this is pretty much all herbs right out of that. Eleuthero, kelp, bee propolis, saw palmetto, parsley. These are all good for different endocrine glands. So it's hitting all the main ones: the pituitary, the adrenals, the thyroid, the pancreas. You got stuff in there for men's prostate and the female organs as well. So it's a great, like, all-around endocrine booster. And then his gland tonic would be kind of like a step up from that. It has the introduction of deer antler in with some of those herbs. So a great formula. We have by Raw Forest Foods one called Endocrine Strengthening Formula. This is a fairly new one that, again, we've tried, and it's very powerful. I like that they put pine pollen in it. Pine pollen, we've talked about, has a lot of the precursors to hormones, and it's just super nutritious too. So a little bit different take on an endocrine gland formula, but a great one. Pine pollen, astragalus, cordyceps, ginger for circulation, hisho wu. Nettles, they actually talk about it. It stops the body's breakdown of some hormones. You talk about like free-flowing hormones. So your body could produce, like men, for example, we could produce testosterone, but if it gets binded to things, we can't use it. So nettles helps prevent the binding and the breakdown of those hormones so that we can more readily use them. And then Panax, ginseng, and tribulus. So, and then we have an adrenal and focus blend by Cedar Bear that's a good one, specifically for the adrenals, and they talk about focus, and it adds some things in here for the brain. But, astragalus, ginkgo, eleuthero, godu kola, rhodiola, licorice, lavender, spearmint, passion flower, a couple like calming ones too. So all great formulas. You can see how each one does it. They bring in several different ones that work together and in slightly different ways. And that a lot of times, like, have you ever heard, I don't remember specifically the different ways of putting it, but, two together, let's say even pulling on something, talk about horses pulling. I think I've seen a study on like Clydesdale horses. The two of them together can pull X amount of pounds, but each one individually, when you add it up, is less than the sum of both of them together. It's kind of the same thing with herbs. They can do good stuff by themselves, but when you pair them together, and you're doing cleansing, and you're eating good food, and everything together, everything's just like boosted way higher. Of course, when we're in partnership with God, with every area of our life, things start working good. And of course, talked about a lot about herbs, but the diet is the main foundation of everything. The herbs, I would consider supplements. They supplement the main things that you're doing. And again, best foods for brain and nerve stuff, fruits, the berries, the melons, all fruits, but especially those berries and grapes. Grapes are very good. So yeah, grapes, melons, berries, very powerful. And you can eat high quantities of them, and you'll notice a change. Just I encourage everybody to eat for breakfast only fruits. It's going to start your day out with energy, minimal digestion. It doesn't take a lot of energy away from your body to break that down. It's very cleansing, everything. So I always start my day now with just fruits. So just get a big bowl of berries and grapes and eat as much as you can. You can't really overdo it. Unless you're combining it with something wrong, and unless you're eating it in a way where it's fermenting. You combine protein and fruit together, cause some major fermentation, which will cause issues in the body. And you try to get good quality produce, especially with berries. They're very highly sprayed with pesticides. You want to make sure at least berries are organic. Some of the stuff that has more rinds on it, if you can't get organic, it's not the end of the world if you get it conventional, bananas or melons, but berries especially, because there's nothing you're taking off of it. You're just eating it. So they can be really bad with pesticides. So get organic and try to get them as fresh and as ripe as possible. It's hard, but we find more farmers, we grow more on our own, we do the best we can, but still the fruits are the best way to go, and stay away from the processed junk food that was never designed to go in our body to begin with. So yeah, that's all I got for now, and then I'll take your questions and answer them the best I can.
Open-ended neuropathy.
Neuropathy?
What's good in your department?
And neuropathy is just like the loss of function in an area, the nerve-wise.
Well, nerve damage, nerve irritation, inflammation. I guess you got a list here.
Yeah, it would be all those same things. Get on the fruit, get off of the congesting stuff, and get some of those herbs. So the deer antler is going to be great for it. Any of those, gotu-kola, ginkgo, those are all going to be really good for it. But yeah, the body's got to have time to cleanse, get the lymph moving. Next class, just so you guys know, on the schedule, this is the last class, but I want to do one more. Not next week because that's Thanksgiving, but the week after that, I'm going to do one more where it's going to be like a summary of all the classes, put it all together holistically. How do we, I've talked about different systems and different stuff, but how do we put it all together, and how do we address healing the whole body? And I just got my certification in the level 2 stage of Dr. Morse's stuff. I was down there in Florida, and some new stuff I'm learning. So I'm excited to kind of just pull it all together. It may be a little bit longer than a normal class. So instead of like an hour, it may be, I don't know. I'm just anticipating maybe an hour and a half. It may not even go that long. I don't know. I might go through it quicker, but it may be a little bit longer. But yeah, in 2 weeks, and we'll put it on the website and all that. But, because the basics are you eat good food, you get the body cleansing, which the colon has to be functioning properly, the kidneys have to be functioning, the lymph dumps into the kidneys, so the kidneys have to be able to get rid of that waste. You have to eat alkaline-forming foods. Again, if you eat the fruits, they're very alkaline-forming, greens. Dr. Morse has put a lot of people on just like simplistic, like a grape fast or a grape juice fast. And it's so powerful for the energetics, and a lot of cancer patients on that, and have them clear up really quickly. Of course, he's dealing with the worst of the worst. We may not need to do that necessarily, but if somebody's really want to go after it and go after it fast, doing a mono fruit, which is one fruit, just eat that and only that, and as much as you want of that can be really cleansing. It's the most simplistic to your body to break it down and utilize it. And if you use a fruit like grapes, super high energy, super cleansing, very astringent, pulling things. So you got to get that lymph moving. by eating proper foods, not eating congesting foods, also movement with the lymph. Muscle stimulation activates lymph movement. So, we've got like a rebounder here. It's a little mini trampoline you can jump on, and if somebody doesn't have the time to go out and exercise, something like that can just be powerful. You don't even need it. Just jump up and down. See how much energy it takes to jump up and down. And you don't have to like I used to do exercise, like jump up as high as I can 25 times in a row. But just move like this. And that could be, of course you want, the more is the better. Running, lifting weights, just being active is really good. But simple things like that can help. And then using those herbs that we talked about. So, yeah. Yes?
Okay, so you were recommending stuff for brain and nerve function and regeneration. When you're dealing with people that are coming out of addictions, like drug addicts, you know what I mean, that did drugs for so long, and maybe they're clean for a year, 6 months, 10 years,
Yeah.
But they have obviously broke down the blood-brain barrier from doing all this stuff, just, clogged up their system. And I'm thinking, well, you said Dr. Morris's brain and nerve formula, and then he combined it with the upper circulation to help, regenerate stuff in the brain,
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah,
I don't know how to ask the question. I guess.
What's the best for that?
Yeah.
So to repeat it, you're asking about maybe specifically for people that were addicted to drugs or stuff, and how it's maybe damaged the brain and how we can go about it. I mean, it's the same things. I don't fully know specifically with addicts. I mean, I just haven't dealt with that as much, but I know I've read and heard some things. Of course, it's good as you rebuild and regenerate. All I know is if you follow, eating good food, getting those, and especially those formulas to really boost nerve regeneration and to improve circulation up there, and you get the lymph cleared out. Again, the head is the last thing to back up, so you've got to clear out lymph below that too. And you see sometimes people with issues when they have their tonsils removed. The tonsils are a lymph node. You get those removed, it can't properly drain down from the head. And don't freak out if anybody's gotten their tonsils. You can still, be fine. But sometimes you see it more prevalent with those people. They get backed up easier, quicker. So you got to get everything moving to start draining that lymph in the head and getting those powerful herbs to boost brain blood flow to the brain and regenerate. And I know that doing that would regenerate things and rebuild stuff that was damaged during that. I don't know specific examples.
Okay.
I had an add-on with that. I've heard it discussed that drug addiction is kind of like food addiction with the brain. And when you've been abusing your body for so long, you've probably been doing it nutritionally as well. We all know how that works. But feeding the body the nutrition it needs is essential as well to get that person stable. So just getting the minerals in there as well is gonna help a lot.
Yeah, good point.
Break the addiction as well to help keep that person away from falling back into a.
Well, I'm talking about people though that have conquered that,
right?
But now they just need rebuilding.
I have friends that still damage and
like if you read a lot about ecstasy puts holes in your brain. I mean, they take before and afters, and there's no hope for you. On all these crazy drugs, and I'm that just cannot be. I don't believe that it can't regenerate.
And those are lies that they'll tell you, and actually it's true. It's true for them. It's true for the medical community. They can't fix your brain.
Right.
It's a true statement for them. They don't know how to truly regenerate and heal. But people that do, they've seen that reverse. So talk about all these crazy drugs that you could do and putting holes in your brain and this and that. That stuff can regenerate. It's not always a quick process, like I said, but doing the basics. And again, I always like to approach things holistically, and that's why I'm going to wrap up with the class next week and really talk about fully holistically, mentally, spiritually, addressing all the systems of the body. To really get the best picture. So I'm going to try to pull it all together next week as best I can.
Thanks. I just wanted to add about that if you didn't know, and I'm curious about the herbs, but essential oils cross the blood-brain barrier. So that is one reason why essential oils are amazing, because they're one of the only things that can do that. I don't know about herbs. I can't speak into that, but I
Yeah.
know that if they haven't tried essential oils, to try, and there are certain ones that would be better for the brain, so that's something you could look into.
Yeah, that's a good point too. And unfortunately, when we try to do an hour class, I don't have time to talk about everything, but I'm glad you mentioned essential oils, because essential oils are very powerful. They're the most powerful form of the herb. You take the herb and you squeeze it down to the most concentrated part, it's the essential oil. So I talked about them a little bit in a couple classes, but yeah, it can be very powerful. And I know like frankincense, and I'm not an essential oil expert, but I know like frankincense, people have talked about putting on the stem of the brain cell back here and helping with neurological things. But yeah, there's probably a lot of essential oils that would be great, but essential oils are usually more expensive too. But people that really need that, I mean, it's great to use.
You look at an orange, like you can eat an orange, but essential oil is from the rind.
Yeah, where the most potent
Not from the juice.
stuff is, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very potent.
Yeah, great point. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
How do you know if you're acidic? How do you know?
How do you know if you're acidic? It's a great question. There are tests you can do, but it's kind of hard to say exactly. Like we sell pH papers, and there's ways you can test the saliva at certain times or the urine, and there's supposed to be a certain thing. I guess I like the saliva better because the urine, if you're detoxing it, I mean, they say that it's supposed to be a certain range, and if it's higher, you're acidic, and if you're lower, but I don't know if it's fully accurate, because if you're detoxing and you're eliminating more, that could potentially throw it off. But yeah, there's certain time of day, like I think it's first thing in the morning, if you test the pH of the saliva, it'll give you a somewhat accurate. But I don't like to bank everything on those tests either, because it doesn't give a picture holistically of the whole body, but it can give a somewhat indication on what's going on. Really the best thing is looking at symptoms and looking at the systems of the body, and if somebody's stiff joints, low energy, I mean, there's a lot of things you could look at to say that you're probably acidic, but it's hard to say exactly like what you are. And some people ask that question, well, what pH am I supposed to be? And I'm like, what part of the body are you talking about? And I don't know, and who's saying what pH is supposed to be? But if you're eating the right things, the body will bring itself into balance. It might not happen first day, first week, first month, but over time it eliminates what it doesn't need, acidic, and it brings balance to. So yeah, I don't have a perfect answer for it, but I wanted to give at least a little clarity at looking at that. So good question. Any others?
So you start eating fruits and veggies, and that will eventually correct the problem?
Yeah, and we have charts on acid-forming versus alkaline-forming foods, and the more you stay on that alkaline side, the more it's going to help your body cleanse out and bring you back into balance. So staying away from the cooked meats and processed grains and processed sugars, and more onto the fruits and veggies. And even, I'm a big fan of raw nuts and stuff too, but in moderation, because those can be somewhat acidic forming. We need a little bit of acids in our body, but primarily alkaline forming. But yeah, you eat the right balance of stuff, your body will figure out the chemistry. All right, thanks.